Well, hello and welcome to the President's second virtual town hall meeting. We're all here in attendance. Welcome again. My name is Kara Furman and I'm representing information technology along with my colleagues Fidel, Bernie Clinch, Stephanie Shabata, and Calvin Coe. We are going to be facilitating the technology side of the town hall today. So our agenda for today's webinar, basically after a panelist's introductions, we're going to focus on 5 core topics that are reflective of issues and concerns that are important to our campus at this time. These topics include fall planning, student support services, facilities and campus access, budget and fees, and fall recovery planning committee. And time permitting, we'll address additional open issues. But before we get started, we're going to review some housekeeping rules. After our opening remarks, as I mentioned, we're going to have some specific topics and they'll be open for questions. To ask a question, we ask that you raise your hand and the questions will be answered or addressed in the order that we get them. If you have a mic, you'll be offered the mic to ask your question in real time. If you don't have a mic, you can put it in the question and answer section. We have a team of panelists who've joined us today that will be replying to your questions that we may not be able to get to in our limited time frame. As they answer the questions, you'll be able to see the responses in your Q&A box. Keep in mind there may be a delay and some lag depending on your internet connection. And we ask that you stay on topic so that we can have a very focused, cohesive conversation as we move through each section. So please limit your questions to the related topic, and we will have an open session at the end where we can address anything that possibly has not been addressed at that time. And with that, I yield the microphone to you, Dr. Parham, so you may begin.
Thank you, Kara, and good afternoon, everybody. So blessed to have everybody joining us on this second of our town halls as we get used to this new technology. I see that over 600 of you have joined us already. We do expect a few more, but delighted to see everybody. So on behalf of our executive cabinet and your executive cabinet, our First Lady, Davita Hopkins Parham, who also is tuning in today. So everybody say hi, First Lady, and other senior academic leaders. I want to welcome all of you to our second campus town hall concerning really our fall 2020 planning. And I do so today with the recognition that our campus has just celebrated the degree completion of seniors and graduate students who have persevered through the challenges of their lives to arrive at this momentous space and time. So I want to start out by asking all of you to please join me in extending a very thunderous congratulatory sentiment to our graduating class of 2020, whose formal commencement ceremony will be held at a later time once it is deemed safe to gather in mass for such celebration. So please join me in applauding all of our graduates of 2020, as we also thank our faculty and staff who have done just your person's work to get these young people across the finish line. So congratulations to our class of 2020. We also want to welcome, if there are any here, our new Toros, both freshmen and transfer students who have already submitted their statement of intents to enroll for the fall 2020 semester, even as we have the June 1st deadline approaching. So we're excited to accept them into our Dominguez Hills family, and I'm sure that they will have a great experience here at California State University, Dominguez Hills. So if everybody would just do a wave to our new Toros if they're on the phone and say, welcome to the Toro Nation. We're glad to have you in the family, and I appreciate that. All right, so after our fall convocation and spring mid-year forum, both before the spread of the COVID-19 health crisis, I encouraged and challenged everyone to interrogate the question of how do we better own student success? And as your president, I'm invigorated to witness the extraordinary actions of all of our campus stakeholders as they've come together to own student success during this unprecedented COVID health crisis. So I want to extend kudos really to everybody for doing that. Indeed, there's much more work to do, And as I continue to say, crisis reveals character, crisis exposes weakness, but crisis also creates opportunity. One of the areas that has been challenging to us is improving our departmental response times to your normal questions and comments in light of this new reality that we are now confronted with. So we understand that communication is key, and we want you to know that we are committed as much as we can to continuous improvement in that area. We are in an imperfect situation for which there is no perfect solution. However, everyone, and I mean everyone's input and opinions, has been and will be welcomed and valued. Therefore, we ask the entire Toro community to exercise patience and understanding as we navigate this crisis together. So you think y'all can do that for me? You can do that for us? I see some head nods, thank you. So to that end, we are here today on this town hall Zoom call to accomplish and discuss the following. So we want to spend time today talking about fall planning and virtual instruction. We want to spend time talking about our student support services that will be available. We want to talk about really access to campus and our kind of buildings and grounds. We want to spend time talking about budget and fees as much as we know about them at this point. We also want to spend time talking about and introducing you to the Fall Planning Committee, and then allow time for questions and answers at the end. So that's going to be kind of our agenda. I'll try to segment it as we work on, and then we'll try to take questions in those segments briefly, and then we'll move on to the next one to make sure we can get as much done in this hour and a half time. Now, since our last town hall on May the 6th, we have crystallized several decisions moving forward. So perhaps it makes sense for me to begin today by sharing with all of you what our latest updates are since the last time we met. So first, the campus is and will be open. I need everybody to hear me on that, because there's a lot of news reporting that somehow campuses are closing or canceling. We aren't. We are open for business. We have been, will be, even though we made a decision that the fall semester will be conducted in a principally virtual format. Now that format will be supported with a combination of both virtual Zoom, online, synchronous, asynchronous instructional modalities, and very limited face-to-face engagement, and I mean extremely limited. And only then when those circumstances do not allow for alternate modes of course delivery. Secondly, the co-curricular learning and service delivery will be available and will be conducted via a virtual reality, with most staff telecommuting, with the exception of essential personnel, as their faculty counterparts will be doing as well. Third, major buildings will be restricted from mass gatherings, and when open, will undergo physical distancing requirements and a thorough cleaning and disinfecting process after use in order to protect the health and safety of our campus community, which is my primary concern. We're also reviewing our capacity to partially open our residence hall community in order to address the circumstances that leave people's living situations compromised. And so we'll update you with further details as the days and weeks move on. Fourth, our technological capability needs to be and will be enhanced in order to accommodate our device loaner program, area coverage for signal bandwidth, and provide voluntary professional development training for our faculty, staff, and students to upgrade their skills during the summer and fall months so that we can all be prepared to better function in a virtual reality. Fifth, athletic competition, practice, training, and travel will be suspended for the fall semester, even though athletes will remain a part of their respective teams. So we know that a number of coaches have been continue to engage in recruiting mechanisms, even though it's virtual. We want to encourage that and want to encourage them to include those new members as part of their team, even as we are making provisions for some athletes who have been granted extensions by the NCAA, and we are Division II, playing out of the California Collegiate Athletic Association, the CCAA. They've been granted extensions for the next year. So we are pleased with that. And so we'll continue to lay out details for that. Sixth, there is some good news since the last time we met. The campus has received our first portion of the CARES Act dollars, and those have been and are being distributed to students. So we've also found the resources to accommodate those students who were deemed ineligible for federal dollars with some support from other pools of available monies. So I'm particularly pleased about that. And I want you to know your cabinet and other folk worked very hard and diligently to make sure that we could find the resources to support all those students deemed ineligible by federal guidelines, including DACA students, including international students, including undocumented students and others. So we're real pleased about that. So we're grateful for the opportunity to support our students financially through this crisis. Sixth, I want to say that the state has released a preliminary estimate of COVID-19 crisis and revealed the circumstance that anticipates reduction scenarios that are being analyzed and calibrated as we speak. So the budget picture in the state does not look very good, but not surprising given what we know. So my team and I are working on various models and looking to see how those will impact campus operations. So as that picture continues to crystallize, we will be back to you with more detail in the weeks and months ahead. It's going to be a long summer, but a busy one as we get ready for the fall and what that will mean. If someone asks a question about how come we don't know more now, it's because you recall the state extended the tax deadline from April 15 until July 15. And that is a major marker for them to decide what state revenues are going to be like. In addition to that, we've got a number of people who are unemployed and not paying state taxes. Businesses closed or closing and have not paid taxes as well. So, and with the expense that we have expended with the COVID-19 crisis, it is quite challenging at best. So we'll know more probably once we get to the first part of August about what the budget specifically will look like, even as we are planning for models and reduction scenarios that will anticipate what our reduction targets will look like, and trying to figure out a way that we can accommodate those, either through the use of very minimal reserves we have, or in holding off on hiring positions, et cetera, that go forward. So we'll keep you posted on that as we have, again, more detail. In summary, I want to ask all of you in particular, those of you who are in leadership roles, to make every effort to work with the spirit of cooperation and collaboration on ways that we can improve our communications, improve our operational efficiency, and focus on student success. So as a campus, our collective goals include preserving educational excellence and concentrating on achieving our mission to provide education, scholarship, and service that are by design accessible, transformative, and rise to a standard of excellence. So with that opening preamble, I want to turn to our provost and see if you'd like to open some remarks as well before we turn it over to Dr. Franklin. Mr. Provost.
Thank you, President Parham. Greetings, everybody. Although we will be talking about details for academic year 2020 and 2021, I want to remind everybody, as I sent out to all of our faculty a couple of weeks ago, we want to finish strong. Today is the deadline at 3 p.m. for all grades. So call out to all faculty, get those grades in at 3 o'clock. And I want to thank Nancy Mack for all the work she's done as our registrar. We also stand ready to help students as they navigate whether or not they want to get into some grade options. They have until June 1st. And I want to thank Maruth Figueroa for leading the advising team. There's a special advising session tomorrow with our advisors Sal and Alma, who will be helping students navigate this in terms of their grades. So let's finish strong. I want to piggyback on what the president said. We have at CSUDH, we have a very unique identity. We have a vital importance to our region. As the president is fond of saying, we transform lives at Dominguez Hills, and we have to remember that. A student with a college degree winds up making 20 to 50,000 more a year in terms of having that degree. We have to focus on that. We also are a force for good in our community and beyond. You all know we produce the creators, the thinkers, the doers of our region, whether it's teachers or nurses or social workers, and we are going to play a vital role in the speeding the recovery of our region on the other side of this pandemic. And we also have to give ourselves the latitude to reimagine possibilities. What can education become to serve our region? Now more than ever, we have to do what we do best. We have to provide quality education. We have to make sure that students do not defer their dreams. Those that are in high school right now, those that are juniors in high school, we need them to continue on their trajectory of education and to not take a year off where it might be difficult to come back to the university and to pursue their education. I also want to share with you that we're going to do this all together. We're going to face the challenges together. We're going to really focus on upskilling. Myself, the president, all the faculty, all the staff, we all have to be in this space of upskilling. To that end, you might know that the president, who originally he had shared with us some analogies of pinball and pagers, he now has his own social media presence. I think it's along the lines of the real President Parham, #extrawoke. But I'll let him correct that a little later in terms of what his actual identity is online. And you might have noticed that the cabinet is actually, we did a TikTok video celebrating the graduates. And I want you to know that my 17-year-old daughter was not embarrassed by my performance. So that's a big win in my area. We also are going to be really depending on our partners going forward. And I want to say to you that, as the president said, we are just celebrating our 60th year anniversary. We want to embark on the next 60 years with really this time period, what we do now, as being our finest hour. And I think we can do that. So we're going to get into the details now. I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Vice President William Franklin. And we have deans, associate deans, AVPs, a whole bunch of people in the chat room and online to answer your questions and help us navigate forward. It's my honor to serve. And I turn it over to Vice President Franklin.
Hey, I'll be really brief. It's so good to see most of you. I can't see the majority of you, but these are some difficult times, some strange times, but there are times that we're going through together. I mean, as we celebrate our 60th anniversary, history records those pioneers who were here to help us get started, and history will record the folks who are here at this time, helping us get through and coming out better than we were before this crisis hit. I want to just give a special shout out to any of our new students who are online. We're going to be hosting on May 26th, and we'll be sending you information out today and the rest of the week. We're going to have a new student virtual town hall with the president again. He'll be the featured guest there. We're going to have a lot of folks who'll be online from all of your student support services programs, from the colleges, from all of our other areas, to really answer your questions specifically about what the new fall semester will be like. And I'm looking forward to having that happen. So it's really important, y'all, and I can't say enough that we're in this together, and we're going to get through this together. And I cannot wait to see you all at a big gathering once all the therapeutics are in place and we have some good news around what we can do. But we're going to be together again as Toros. The Toro Nation is not going to be changed one bit by this thing. We're going to be better on the other end. So I'll turn it back over. We can get into the meat of why we're here, fall 2020 and beyond.
Yeah, thank you, Provost Spagna and Dr. Franklin. We appreciate you, and know, ladies and gentlemen, that these individuals, along with our other members of the cabinet, your academic deans and associate deans, all the faculty are just working very, very hard to make sure that we can rise to the occasion on this. I want to express my thoughts. So going forward, we're going to now try to segment this call into kind of 10-minute blocks in our last hour. And we'll try to go through each of the segments. So let's start off with fall planning, where we've announced that we are going to virtual instruction. And I'm going to turn it over to the provost for this segment, and take it away.
So thank you. As you all know, and as the president led off with, the chancellor has decided, he has made the bold decision that we are going to virtual learning environment for fall 2020. That's not a decision that all of the various chancellors and presidents have made around the country, but it's one that we've made. and it's one that we are taking forward here at Dominguez Hills. As you also know, that related to our fall planning, the determination of whether we relax restrictions will be dependent on how we recover as a community. And as you all know, LA County is probably the hardest hit. It is the hardest hit in terms of the entire state of California. So that will direct us. What we know is that as we were interrupted in the spring semester, it caught us all unawares. A lot of it was catch up. A lot of it was unintended. We gave some time for faculty to retool, to get prepared, but it wasn't nearly enough. So into the summer, we are preparing with intentionality to provide a lot of support and professional development. And this is to our faculty, to our staff, and to our students to navigate this teaching and learning environment going forward. So you're going to hear a little later in this town hall from our co-chairs of our fall 2020 planning, recovery planning committee, where we've already started to put together modules and professional development activities for over the summer, a multitude of them, to try and support our colleagues as we go forward. As the president noted earlier, we will be primarily virtual in our instruction, and the only allowance for any deviation from that will have to be approved by our president and sent forward to the chancellor. So if there is any limited face-to-face instruction that will take place in the fall, it will have to meet certain thresholds. You could imagine, number one, the first threshold is we have to ensure the safety of our faculty and students. This would mean things like maintaining social distancing, cleaning, being able to support those activities. Again, these are going to be few and far between, but we will measure them against those educational activities that cannot be reached and achieved without having some limited face-to-face instruction. The example I would give you all is that if you have students that have to do something in a wet lab and there's no way of doing that or being able to commit to that virtually, we're going to put together a request for an exception that will go through the president and ultimately to the chancellor to see if we can do that kind of activity. These will be disciplinary based. The deans and associate deans are already working with chairs actively to put together a matrix of what those might look like, and they are going to be unique. So as they go forward, the message for all of you to know is that we will be in a virtual environment for fall, and with very limited and very rare exceptions will we have alternatives. But again, it will be guided by first safety, second, can we support faculty in this effort? And then third, and most importantly, we do not want to deprive students from being able to meet their student learning objectives and to be able to proceed to degree. So that'll be an important element. The other thing that I would share with all of you for our planning, summer is an important time for us because historically, to better serve our students, we have had early start activities. So early start in its old form it's not going forward. The chancellor's office has decided not to have that go forward in its former form, but we have been actively working on strategic opportunities to transform what we do to provide support for students, and we're actively engaged in those models right now. Those are some of the primary things we're doing in fall. Now, those are on the instructional domain. As you could expect, these have nexuses and connections with all other parts of campus. So you can't develop some of these, what I talked about with limited face-to-face instruction, unless we're able to affect certain support from facilities, being able to clean rooms, being able to be careful about how people have access to rooms, all the rest. So as you'll hear later in the town hall, you'll be hearing particularly from the fall 2020 Recovery Planning Committee to give you a little more details about that. And again, how we reach all stakeholders as we go through this planning effort together. This is unprecedented. We've never done it. Higher ed's never done it. On the other side of this, we'll be keeping careful notes because this will require us to reimagine what we do in higher education. So President Parham, that's what I have on this front for the first section for the fall 2020 planning, particularly on the academic front.
Dr. Parham, you're muted.
That might help you. I mean, you couldn't hear me talking to the screen without. Anyway, I was saying that, thank you, Mr. Provost, for that. Also, I've begun to look at some of the questions in the Q&A box, and some of them relate to budget discussions, which we're going to have in a moment. So I'm going to try to pause on those. Very few relate to what I'm looking at in terms of the fall planning. Some relate to student hiring, so we hear you on that. We'll talk about that in the budget cycle. as well as whether or not we anticipate any furloughs or layoffs. So know that we hear and see your questions. We'll get to those very shortly. I want to try to focus, Cara, if you have any on the fall planning itself, classes and what those criteria look like.
Some of the questions that I am seeing are virtual classes, how will they affect the arts, and library resources. Those are the top questions that I'm seeing being asked.
So as the short answer is we don't know, and we're trying to figure it out. I mean, this is new territory that we are covering. We have a mandate that is a combination of a whole range of factors. One, we have directives from the chancellor's office. We have directives from the governor. We have directives from the County of Los Angeles and what they allow. We have public health advisories, advice from our medical experts, and all of that is in concert with what we think we can do in protecting the health and safety of our campus, on top of trying to support educational excellence. So as much as we can, we are going to try to invite faculty to be as creative as possible at being able to achieve their learning outcomes in new and innovative ways that sometimes do not involve face-to-face. And when we'll get a clearance to be able to go back to face-to-face on a more exaggerated basis and repopulate the campus is anybody's guess, but not until we start seeing the numbers go down, the incidence and prevalence data look a little different than it does right now in terms of new cases and total number of cases, and the mortality rate going down. I think that's a challenge. We also want to remember that in this COVID crisis, I don't need to remind folk who've been watching the news that the populations that are being most impacted by this, right, are particularly African-American and Latinx populations. And our campus to date is about 64% Latinx, we're about 14% African-American. That's an awful lot of people we have to make sure we pay attention to. So in addition to everybody else who is Asian, Latino, Indian, white, you know, whatever the color is, we are worried about everybody's safety. So we have to be clear about that. So relative to the spaces, if you can develop and make a case for why this thing cannot be done in any other way other than face-to-face, then we've got to think about how to provide, as the provost said, the social distancing. We have to think about how to provide not, you know, more than maybe half of people or a third of the people in the classroom, and how you offer different sections of it. We have to have that plan signed off. How do we have the rooms disinfected and care for all that? We also have to get, by the way, a public health sign off on this, which is one thing I think the provost neglected to mention, in that we have to have that sign off before it gets to he and then to me. And then I have to present all that to the chancellor to be able to get the chancellor's office to sign off. So it is a very high bar for us to meet to be able to go face to face with anything, which is why they're not allowing campuses for the most part to be able to do this. And they are going either by department or very program specific and course specific things to be able to get that done. So that's the best I can tell you for now. Any other questions around fall planning, Carol?
Campus research, how's that going to be conducted? I think a lot of the questions that are coming up will pertain mostly, that I'm seeing right now, are fall recovery planning committee questions.
Right.
I'm trying to go through them as quickly as possible. Some of the questions that I'm seeing that are being repeated are what agencies are going to be putting forth the decision-making process, is the deadlines and the decision-making in conjunction with what the governor is offering. I'm trying to hit a lot of different questions that are asking globally. I'm seeing it repeated.
Good, so thank you for that summary. So the agencies that we are looking at are what I just articulated. So we have guidance from the governor's office and directors. We have guidance from the county and the mayor. We have guidance from public health advisories and medical experts, on top of the fact that we have guidance and directives from the chancellor's office itself. So all those we pay attention to in addition to this particular space. So presidents are afforded with very limited degrees of freedom, the ability to grant those exceptions. And we can't even grant them. We can appeal and propose exceptions to the chancellor's office for them to sign off on. But those will be very, very limited. So that's the myriad of factors that we have to contend with in order to approve any of those exceptions.
Um, Virtual classes, a question came up, how will that affect staff, having virtual classes?
So I think for staff, it's the same piece that right now we are functioning in a virtual environment where most staff, as our faculty, are telecommuting. They will be moving in those spaces. But as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we've got to figure out a way to get better at providing essential service to people so that when they call into an office on campus, be it financial aid or admissions, be it the Career Center or health, be it academic advising or one of our affinity centers, we've got to get real good at making sure that we are responding to that and really upgrade our technology and customer service in a way that allow us to do that. So those will be happening in a virtual environment as well, with only essential personnel being granted access to the campus until we begin to get more degrees of freedom and can begin to repopulate the campus. If in fact we are allowed to repopulate our residence halls, which are a possibility, you'll recall that during the spring semester, even as we were tapping down the number of people in our residence halls, we ended the year with, and I think Dr. Franklin will confirm this number, around 130 plus or minus a few students there who are Pearl Guardian scholars who are in foster care, don't have a place to go, people who are either international or somewhere, you know, their circumstances just not quite right for them to do that. And we were allowed with the proper social distancing and cleaning to be able to maintain that. Well, those circumstances have not dissipated. They in fact have been exacerbated. So we are looking to try to get that same kind of degrees of freedom for opening the fall. And so we anticipate being able to do that with further guidance that hopefully will be revealed as we move forward. So that's what we know right now. And that's the best.
Dr. P, can I also add that it's also for most of the co-curricular, the student affairs and other areas where they serve students, it's certainly about being responsive to calls that come, but it's also about upskilling, retraining, professionally developing those student service units that were very high touch and connected to students, and trying to find ways to do that in this virtual format will be a summer focus. We all overnight went into this virtual space and tried to catch as catch can. And some of those folks have been doing some phenomenal work in terms of connecting with students in the ways that can also ensure academic success. And so we're going to be looking at doing that even more so over the summer so we can come into the fall with other ways of being intentional and inclusive, as well as excellent in how we deliver those services to students.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that's a great tee up, Dr. Franklin, to talk about just student support services. So let's see if we can't shift the conversation a little bit, even as we're chronicling the questions. By the way, we have several folk who are taking notes, chronicling questions, and we'll make sure we try to get back to you. So if your question doesn't get addressed in person, know that we are chronicling it and we will make sure that we address it ahead. So Dr. Franklin, why don't we tee up student support services and continue on with what that looks like virtually.
That was a good tee up. I think I just teed it up in what I just said. And we have a number of folks who are here from EOP, ETE, University Advising Center, Career Center, and just a number of folks who can answer and address any questions on what those kind of co-curricular student support services will look like in the fall, what your questions might be. And so we're prepared to answer those. All I cannot answer, I know who's online, and I will ask our moderators to throw it to them and they can be more specific if the questions come. So let's see what those questions might be in the chat box. I don't know if, in the Q&A box, but right now our focus is on making sure and with great intentionality and with some level of professional development that we can move into a space where students in this virtual fall 2020 can get the kind of access and the kind of inclusive excellence that they deserve, even if they cannot physically walk into an office here. And so that's what we're trying to ensure. And again, some phenomenal work has gone forward so far, but we want to be intentional about upskilling, making sure that work continues to go forward. So if there are any questions, we can entertain them now related to student support services and the kind of co-curricular pieces that we know are instrumental in student success. And we'll look forward to throwing them to those folks who can answer them more specifically.
So if I may interject just a moment, panelists, if I can enlist your support, there are 38 open questions. If you would please take a moment to read through the questions, especially those that we've already moved on from, like fall planning. If you can answer, if you type your answer in, the response will go into a holding bin of answered questions where everybody can see the responses. For those that are waiting, to ask questions. If your question is about student support services, we'll be able to address those. And then I'd like to toggle back and forth between the live questions and some of those that are remaining in the question and answer section. Participants, you are welcome to write your questions out either in question and answer format, or you can raise your hand and we will we will call on you to give you the mic. As has been mentioned, we have a full team of people waiting to respond to you. So we're gonna go ahead and shift over to the raised hands. Ruben Almeida, I see that your hand's up. Fidel, if we can give him the mic, your question.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ruben. I'm sorry, my question was actually about fall questions. So I don't know if you guys still want me to continue with the questions.
Go ahead, Ruben, answer your question.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. My question is, being now that we're going virtual, will the openings for students open more? For example, waiting lists, are those going to be open? How are the books going to go about? You know, where can we go to the library? What's the deal with that? Some teachers like to start right away, and we need to be ready for that with the book. So that's a concern. The Zoom thing, well, I mean, that's something that, you know, when we get there, we'll deal with. But those are my main concerns, just the waiting list and how that's going to work. Are we going to open more, being that we're virtually now versus in person? And that's pretty much it. And once again, just thank you all for doing these meetings for us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Ruben. Let me turn that over to Academic Affairs. He's asking about the waiting list for classes. I guess if a class has a cap of 40 people and there's a wait list after that, does virtual allow us to expand the number of people who we can enroll in a particular class?
Yeah, so I heard three parts of Ruben's question. The first one was about access. So Ken O'Donnell, our course schedulers, everybody is working actively on trying to ensure access. If students can't get classes, that defeats the whole purpose of time to degree. So that's a critical thing that we're going to be really focused on. So I can assure you that we're gonna ensure everything we can to make sure students have access and can complete things, and it doesn't take them off their path to degree. Second is about library resources and other resources. Again, that's what our team is working on actively, which is we need to make sure you have access to the materials to be able to study, to be able to participate. That involves the library, it involves course instructors, a whole variety on that front. So those are things that we are actively planning on. I mentioned earlier that we have this committee that's put together a matrix to look at what the outcomes are for students. So we're looking at what support services have to be in place with there as well. So that's kind of a direct answer to that question, and I would leave it to any of our colleagues, as William offered, in the chat box if you want to add more details, Ken O'Donnell and others. So I'd have you put that in the chat box, that might help as well.
And I think the third part of Ruben's question had to do with the availability of course materials. And as we're looking for course materials to support the academic instruction that's happening virtually, how do we get access to those, and what are we planning for that? Again, that's one of the pieces that the fall planning group will be looking at. So there'll be subcommittees that'll be looking at the operational nature of how we go about putting that in place. So we'll have that there as well. Ken or folk, anything you want to add to what the provost and I have just said? Or Dr. Franklin? Okay.
Nope,
All right.
we're good.
Thank you all. Okay, Kara, any other before we go to our next topic?
No, I think, well, students are asking, or questions that are coming in about students expecting when LSU and dining services are going to reopen, and what type of social distancing guidelines are going to be in place. We have a couple questions about, I'll read the question. It's from Karama Blackhorn. We have received clear plans for hiring student staff next year. Many of our programs are student leadership focused, and strategically planning our programs without knowing the role of students makes the process lacking. When and how do we plan to address student hiring for student-centered programs like the Queer Culture and Resource Center?
Yeah, so thanks, Karma, for the question, and nice to hear from you. Hope you're having a good summer and staying healthy. What we have not done is provided any guidance at all about hiring going forward. And part of what makes that difficult is trying to crystallize really the budget circumstance and situation and what that means. The only guidance that we have received thus far is a memo that came from the State Office of Finance and the Governor's Office that have allowed us to really take a peek at what the state deficits look like. And that has then been translated into what that means for the CSU system in terms of its reduction targets. And so what you've heard thus far is the $199 million enhancement to the budget that was online is now off the table. And we are subject to what is a $398 million reduction. So if you do the math with me, that's about $600 million difference to the system. And so that's what we are struggling with. What we don't know is the exact number of reserves the state is prepared to bring to be able to mitigate that number, what the Chancellor's Office reserves are looking to do, and ultimately how that will get translated and passed down to our specific campus. And so not knowing that, we are planning for a set of reduction scenarios that I've directed the team to look at, that look at 3, 5, 8, 10, 15, and 20% reduction scenarios. So we are modeling what that looks like and balancing that against positions, available reserves, and the deployment of other resources we have, including the CARES second half of the funding that might be able to mitigate against some of those losses. So we're not able to tell you at this town hall what that will mean for employment of students, et cetera. At this point, we just don't know, but we're waiting for further guidance and we'll be back to you. Let me pause on that and go to Wayne. I think Wayne is on the, and he does a magnificent job for us and has been with our budget out of the admin and finance division. So Wayne, you want to speak to anything else on that?
Dr. Parham, I apologize. Could you?
Yeah, the question was about when we'll be able to hire, or if we can hire student assistants. And so I just gave everybody a rundown about what the budget scenario looks like, the guidance we received from the state office, what the reduction targets look like, how that's going to get translated, and then shared with them that there's a whole bunch we don't know because we don't know what reserves are going to get deployed from the state, from the Chancellor's Office, and either the campus, or how we can deploy certain elements of the CARES funding to be able to help mitigate our own losses that we're expecting. So anything else you want to provide on the budget scenario for that?
No, I think you explained it very well. And again, I apologize. I was trying to get some answers to respond to some of the questions in the chat. But
President, can I respond though?
Please do.
Yeah, so student affairs, and I think what Wayne helped us understand is that as a campus, we invest heavily in peer educators, peer mentors, peer tutors, peer advisors, career coaches, this campus, and I think it's to the tune of roughly $4.5 million in different colors of money that this campus invests in students. There is no way we will exit this pandemic without redeploying students. It's just that how many, when is what's in question right now. And we're going to be spending the next couple of weeks having some very serious conversations because especially in student affairs, we have a ton of, student is our first name. So we have a ton of them in place, and if our student success indicators would not be where they are if it were not for students going along beside of us and partnering with us as our assistants and our mentors and our educators and our advisors. And so they will help us move through here. And in the coming weeks, we'll know specifically what that means. And so and that's the challenge right now, not being able to know that with some definitive nature, because this is the time that students start walking alongside us in the summer to help us prepare for not only bridge and early start, but also for the fall. So I hope in the coming weeks, like the president's saying, we can get specific about what we're going to do related to student assistance. You're on mute, Prez.
Yeah.
There we are again. Okay. That allows us in the moment, as I thank you for the additional comments, and Wayne as well, to transition into our next piece, which is what does that mean for access to the campus? Because one of the previous questions was about what about dining, the student center, et cetera. So Jonathan, I think you are on the line and I can't see you on my screen. It only allows for 36 months of time too. So, okay, there you are. I see you popped up. You want to share with us some words from you and Vice President Wallace about what our planning is looking like for occupying the campus?
For the dining center is what you were asking about, President?
Or just how we are really allowed to repopulate or not repopulate the campus. What kind of access people will have to LSU and to our dining facilities, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, right now, trying to work with social distancing, we are not allowing students, faculty, or staff to be on campus unless there's a specific reason. Faculty need to let their deans or associate deans know that they need to be on campus. We get them put on a list. Then they have full access once they're on that list to their office spaces. Staff, same thing. They need to go directly to one of their administrators for an okay to get back to their office area if they need to get some files or something like that. And we're working with campus police for off-hour access and also our work control for the time being access during our regular working hours from 8 to 5. Student union is closed right now. There is no access to the student union. I know bookstore has some limited access on books right now, and they're working on a protocol for returning books and purchasing books too. But what we're trying to do is keep everybody safe. All the faculty, students, and staff that are on campus on an intermittent basis, we're trying to keep them all safe via social distancing, requiring PPE to be worn via the state CDC and local LA County protocols. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do our best with that. Campus police is helping with that too. And everybody's been doing a great job with that out in the other areas on campus, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. And so as you hear from Jonathan, the need to platoon even those limited number of people who are seeking access to either their labs, faculty offices, staff offices, et cetera, needs to go through a very complex place to make sure that we are adhering to all the guidelines that are there. And I want to thank Jonathan and all of our facilities personnel who've been really helping us with that. So we are grateful for that as well. We've made a lot of reference to this fall planning committee. And I wonder, Mr. Provost, if this is a good time to kind of shift the agenda a little bit and introduce both of those co-chairs and talk about how people can get access to them and provide them feedback. I will also say that we have received a number of requests, and I want you to know we hear you on this, for people to say, I want to be part of the committee. But a seat at the table of the committee, to me at this point, we can't put everybody in the campus, with a seat at the table. What's most important is your feedback and your opinion and your perspective. And I can guarantee you that as you provide your feedback and perspective and opinion to that committee, we will take all that into account because they need it. And they may be, in fact, reaching out to you as part of their task to be able to seek your guidance and perspective on a whole range of things there. So, Mr. Provost, why don't we introduce that committee now in our
Yes,
call.
thank you. And I've just been marveling at the Q&A, and I appreciate all of our colleagues. I mean, they're answering a lot of questions simultaneously in very specific areas. So I want you to use advantage of that. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Cheryl Coos and Dr. Dang Cherwarawong, who are our co-chairs of the Fall 2020 Recovery Planning Committee, and they are organizing a group of colleagues that are really responsive to stakeholders and putting together ideas. They've been sifting through some of what exists on a local and even a national level for best practices. They are in regular contact with other colleagues, not just within the system, but across other systems as well. And we've alluded to several things that they're working on, some that have immediate need, for instance, what we're doing in professional development over the summer, as well as tooling up for what's going to happen in the fall. So let me turn it over to Cheryl and Dang to introduce themselves, say hello, and if you can give a little snapshot between the two of you of who else is on the committee and what are some of the activities you've been engaged in so far to this point.
Sure, great. Thank you, Provost Spagna. I'm Cheryl Coos. I'm the AVP from Faculty Affairs and Development. And the Recovery Committee encompasses representatives from academic affairs, faculty, student affairs, information technology, the Student Health Center, and emergency operations. The Fall 2020 Recovery Committee has been meeting regularly and now daily since it's received its charge from the President. We are connected to and will be continuing to consult with many campus stakeholders as we move forward, including but not limited to emergency operations, the Academic Senate, ASI, campus bargaining units, and others. Currently, we are working to coordinate increased opportunities for faculty professional development as faculty continue to transition to virtual and alternative modes of instruction for the fall. The Office of Academic Technology, the Faculty Development Center, and the Office of Undergraduate Studies, along with the University Library, are collaborating on various opportunities for faculty online technological and pedagogical development throughout the summer. More information will be coming soon.
Is that a cue for me, Cheryl?
It is.
Okay, hi, I'm Dang Shonvirawong, Associate Vice President for Student Success. And I must say I've only been on campus by, I think, mid-February, and then we went on COVID, social isolation, and then I was put on this committee, so I'm rather new on this campus, but the silver lining of this is I get to work with an amazing group of people, and I want to mention the people on the committee. We have AVP Maruth Figueroa, we have Dean Mitch Avila, also Myra Soriano from ETE, also Dr. Gao from Health Services, and Nora Garcia from Emergency Preparedness, as well as Dr. Heather Butler from Psychology, and Alana, AVP from Institutional Effectiveness. And also, let's see, who else did I miss? I missed somebody, Cheryl, help me.
Zach Ritter.
Ritter. Dr. Zach Ritter, who's Associate Dean of Students.
Myra Soriano, Encounters.
Yep, I got Myra. Yeah, so if I missed somebody, I have prepared a list, and I couldn't pull it up on the screen right now. But I wanted to share that some things that we're working on right now, you should have received survey for faculty, which subcommittee of our big committee have worked on. And the survey will close this Friday, and the survey is focusing on getting your feedback on your experiences past term, and also feedback on professional development opportunity and what we can do to help you prepare for the summer and the fall. And then the staff survey is in the work right now and will go out hopefully by next week. It will be run through to HR to make sure everything's look okay before it go out, but it will be in English, in Spanish, and I'm anticipating a third language, but I have to work with HR on that. We will be using survey results to guide our focus groups, which will be decided throughout the summer on specific topics appropriate for staff and faculty. And also we are on the way of creating a website to house all of our information and all the work in progress that we are doing. We also, as Cheryl mentioned, will be meeting with many stakeholders to get feedback besides from the survey and focus group to come. And then we have our email address, which is recoveryplanning@csudh.edu, that you can always email us, and Cheryl and I have access to those, and as well as the committee member. I should mention all the questions that have been discussed prior to us being introduced, we are all considering those questions as well. For example, just this morning, we talked about access to book and how book has to be quarantined. I never thought about book has to be quarantined, but yes, they do before they get distributed again. And then we even think about also question about staff returning to campus and some of them returning to campus. Then the issue came up about how often then do we have to clean the bathroom and keep the facility clean. So those are questions that we discussed in our meetings every day. This is the second week we've been meeting, and things keep changing, as you know, on a daily basis. And so we're keeping up with that information as well.
So I would add to what Dang and Cheryl just said. One of the things that I mentioned earlier was that right in the forefront of all of us is that with intentionality, how do we approach the fall? It's going to be critical. We keep using this word upskilling, so that there will be a series of workshops that are, although not mandatory, they're going to be workshops where they will have compensation associated with them to try and upskill, particularly our faculty, in being able to work in a virtual environment to deliver quality instruction. And I have two things to share with you. One is we have been selected by the Chancellor's Office to participate as one of only 8 campuses to participate in a program that's delivered through an organization that's high quality, the Association of College and University Educators, ACU. And there will be professional development. I've seen it. It's high quality. We'll be engaged in that. We also, just today, from our College of Extended and International Education under Dean McNutt's leadership, they have now authorized and they will be supporting instructional designers to be embedded in each college. So this is pretty critical because it allows people to work with technical expertise at the college level with faculty to try and help them and assist them in upskilling what they're doing to provide quality instruction. So those are a couple examples of what we're working on going forward.
Great, thank you, Mr. Provost. I want to see if we can't go to a couple questions to try to address those. So one of the questions had to do with, can we talk a little bit about extended education and what we're doing? So I know we've got Dean McNutt and Associate Dean Hamoud Saleh online. I can't see your faces, but do you want to weigh in for a couple seconds on that to our audience? Hamoud is
Go ahead
waiting.
and unmute yourself and you can talk. Hold on.
Okay.
There you go.
Hi, everybody. This is Hamoud Salhi. I'm the Associate Dean of International Education and Senior International Officer. Thank you for organizing this, President Parham and Provost Michael Spagna for doing this for us.
And Hamoud, talk to us a little bit about any additional plans that you have going over in extended education and international education for this fall semester going virtually.
We've really been very busy, in part because a lot of things are moving towards online. A lot of communication is done through phones and internet, Zoom meetings. We are now targeting the newly admitted students. These are students who are sort of admitted, not committed yet. The big challenge is to find them a way how they keep sort of commit to our universities, A, and B, if they choose to defer for the spring semester, there is that opportunity for them. The CSU has allowed that option. For those who are taking online instructions or virtual instructions, we are looking at finding ways of how to make sure that the technology is there for them, that the timing is not an issue. So the plan, and we check in with other CSU sisters and other and NAFSA organization on working, identifying those students who are abroad, and look at the time zone. I think the next step for us is to reach out to their faculty, the colleges, and make them aware of the time difference, and then move from that to create conditions for that, for their success. The second area that we're doing is that we reach into agents. We are trying to sort of find a way of how to work with them, to keep them in tune with what's happening on campus. And the third area is really the study abroad program. We want to continue on that momentum. We are working with the faculty that, who Michael Spagna has designated to work with us. This is Professor Jane Casco. She's been attending our meetings, and we are trying to keep up the momentum by organizing some meetings with our study abroad agents and associated and partners. We'll continue to work through this. I think there's a lot of things to learn. One of the things that we're learning is that it is good to be good at communicating things. It is also good to spend some time working at night and reaching out to our partners. And hopefully we'll get through this and we'll be in good shape in next phase.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And a couple other questions before we transition into our next phase. There's a question about grading and how did we decide and what determinants went into the no credit and withdrawal policy and kind of changing up in the middle of the semester. I would simply say that every degree of freedom was exercised in trying to recognize that students would have a difficult time transitioning in this environment from a face-to-face to a more virtual one. And we wanted to provide and accommodate students as best we could to give them additional degrees of freedom, which is what the no credit as well as withdrawal option was for students. On top of extending the deadline that allowed them to actually do it even once the quarter was over and their grade was received. So that was guidance that also came from the Chancellor's office as well. Mr. Provost, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that there have been questions about will this policy or the changes we made, will they continue into the fall? Not decided yet. I think this was more of a reaction to what happened with the interruption in the spring. And I want to remind everybody that the credit, no credit option, we already have courses that are designed that way, but the idea of whether or not we would extend those policies into next year is still a conversation to have. I think it was, to be clear, it was a reaction to the interruption we had, which was not fair to any of us, to try and support students. And again, as I said at the outset, students have until June 1st. The advisors stand at the ready, including a webinar tomorrow, to guide students in making thoughtful choices as to the grade they've received. Do they want to exercise the opportunity to take a no credit option, which in some cases can help.
Right, thank you for that. Also, there was a question about COVID testing for students, faculty, staff. So one of the things that the planning group is having to work on when we think about repopulating the campus is how do we get the number of people tested? And we have to have those particular provisions in place in order to get that done. And it's not simply a supply of tests to cover our, a couple thousand faculty and staff and 17,000 students. It is the repeated nature of having to test folk who are then mobile in the broader environment. So we have to pass that test for all of us to be able to think about opening up as a criteria to be able to do so. There's a question about financial holds. I can tell you that this management team has been working and thinking about that question. I think both Vice President Wallace and Vice President Franklin have been talking about that, as well as the Provost in Academic Affairs. So we are working on that. There's no one size fits all on those. Some are very small for minor things, some are large. We're trying to see what we can do to exercise some flexibility on that. And that's what I can say about that. I want to transition now into talking about, you've heard about the budget. I'm sorry, budget and fees. for the fall semester, because people have been asking about that. So generally, I need folk to understand that there's lots of folk in the country who are talking about whether or not educational institutions should in fact be providing refunds for tuition because of going to a virtual reality. I can tell you without question that it is actually sometimes more expensive, not less expensive, to be able to do this in a virtual environment than less. And as long as we are providing a level of instruction and engagement for students, both on the academic as well as the co-curricular side of the institution, we will not be providing, nor will the chancellors always be providing any guidance on issuing fees for that. The one provision we have issued fee refunds on are two things that people absolutely cannot use, which are the parking piece and I think the housing refunds that Lynn and her team, in conjunction with Dr. Franklin, were able to facilitate for students who had to abruptly move out of housing. But I also want to share with folk this reality, and I think everybody needs to hear me clearly on this one, that fees are not simply designed to provide service. They also support the structure itself. When you think about the Student Center, the alumni who voted for that voted to tax themselves moving forward, even though they would not have a chance to be able to use it until it was there. And so it doesn't just support your service in that union, it supports the union itself and the structure and the upkeep and operations and the debt service and everything else connected to that. So when we start thinking about creating refunds for a whole range of things on campus, we understand there's a sensitivity to the cost factors and the financial circumstances of each and everybody in our Toro family. On the other hand, we have an obligation to preserve and protect the integrity of the institution as a campus and the necessity to be able to charge those fees to make sure that we can actually have buildings and faculty and staff and other folk available to be able to support that. So that's what I would say. As far as labs go, is it likely that we will be refunding fees for labs or charging them? That has yet to be determined. But if we can provide the instruction in a way that is still available, then the likelihood would be none. Let me transition to our next topic, reminding folks that point values have now moved from double to triple, so we're in our last few minutes. And we can extend even the town hall if we'd like for a few more minutes. I think our time may be good to do that. And I want to just go to asking more questions. So Kara, we've covered access to campus, budget and fees, fall planning committee, student support services, and fall planning. So we want to try to use the rest of our time to answer questions that are coming from our audience, as we thank those of you who are panelists for responding online to some of the chat.
Yes,
so Kara, go for it.
Thank you very much for that. We have had a lot of questions coming through. Before we jump into, we've had several very patient people waiting with their hands raised. I hope their arms are not too tired. We will take those calls in just a moment, but I want to address one question that I've seen repeatedly come up. It's about streamlining book purchasing, the ordering and shipping process. Is one issue that I've seen brought up several times, and online textbooks. And then another issue that I'm seeing is it's from a senior who is wanting to graduate but can't register because there's a financial hold, and if there's a possibility for that to be removed so that she can join in. I'm seeing a couple of questions like that, and then we will shift over to Jocelyn Taboada so she can ask her question.
So we'll ask our staff who are online to go and speak directly to the financial hold, because that's an individual situation and circumstance, and we don't know what the nature of the hold is, how much it is, what it's about. So we'll figure that out. Let's go in and ask the question.
The question, can someone answer questions then from the panelists? If you would kindly go in, there's about 3 or 4 questions about ordering books online. So if someone could do that. Otherwise, we will shift over to Jocelyn Taboada. Fidel, if you can give her the mic, please.
Hi, Jocelyn.
Jocelyn is using an older version of Zoom, and it does not allow me to access her mic.
Jocelyn, I think your question was in here. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. If not, we'll come back to it. I'll find it, and because I think I saw it in here, but I can't find it right this moment. Well, I'll come back to you. Russell Owens?
Yeah, I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Russell.
Okay, so I had a quick question about grades and financial aid and how that's going to affect the fall semester. I think one of the panelist members said it's going to be updated today at 3 o'clock. So I guess for my question is, do we still gotta wait for the financial aid to come in? Because there's a lot of extensions going on and it seems like it's a little bit up in the air.
Russell, I guess I'm wondering, do you mean the CARES funding financial aid, or so I'm trying to get specifically what you mean by financial aid.
Yeah, I was just concerned about for the fall semester because they're putting charges onto my account.
Gotcha.
And I don't have a way to pay for them without the financial aid,
Gotcha.
any kind, really. So I was just wondering when that will be coming in, if it's going to be in the month or just at the end of the summer.
Yeah, good. And as the president said, and hopefully this will address it, because students submit FAFSA at different times, and the feds want certain information and state wants certain information, like award letters and the like go out at very different times. So, but if you're registered in classes and you have financial aid coming, they will not remove your courses. So that's specifically, let's try to get your questions answered specifically. And if you go into the chat or into the Q&A and answer your question specifically, I'll make sure I can get to you if you send me a message, and make sure the financial aid office can handle your case specifically to ensure your aid is posted, but your classes are also held, which is very important.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Franklin. Also, before we go to the next question, Kara, I want to invite Vice President Manriquez to the mic and have him share a little bit about what his team is doing relative to technology as we move into this. And he's particularly concerned about how do we address this digital divide. And I really want to thank him and his team for just the person's work that they've been doing in the middle of this crisis. Vice President Manriquez, you want to weigh in?
Thank you, Presby. I just want to share, based on, I've been typing as fast as I can, which is why my images hasn't been on the screen, responding to as many Q&A questions have been coming up. And I'll say this for the larger body of the group as well. Well, the largest segment of questions I've been receiving is about twofold. The first is our LMS. Our LMS is getting migrated to Blackboard Ultra. We're upgrading to that. Very similar in configuration as well as utility to what is in Canvas, with additional feature sets built in. And the campus, which has been on Blackboard for a decade, will get to step up to that new feature set, along with historically bringing some of the items that we won't have to recreate because we remain on that platform. So it eases us into it. The second component is around our devices going to continue to be available for those who over the next term may not have access either to internet or to devices or to components for peripherals for devices like laptops or headphones or things like that. The answer is yes, we are making those available. We're also making available, and you should be soon seeing coming out of IT, a list of, in the local region, what technology providers can also make available for you. This is a partnership deal. COVID is not just impacting Dominguez Hills, it's impacting other community partners as well as cities, and there are a number of us that are working in many different avenues to try and provide this. So we're working with many of those and hoping to get that information out in early June. Some of the changes you're going to see on the campus for us, I think, that are going to be important are we're trying to integrate with many of the departments over this term. Some of the technology we've had on campus, in some cases, it might have been for a couple of years that really didn't have a need to be engaged until now. And in other cases, we're bringing on new technologies to facilitate the growth that we've got in the virtual environment. We will be going department by department in these meetings and having discussions in ways that these can be engaged. So it can be from faculty office hours, how do we engage those in a digital way? It can be things that we're doing administratively and delivering. We have some early adopters that have come on campus. Advising in particular just recently had a check-in advising service made available. Some of those tool sets will be now made available to other operational areas. So look for more information to come out of IT and the campus related to these capabilities as they continue to get released. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kara, let's go to back to questions. Our point values are now quadrupled in our last 10 minutes. Go for it.
Indeed. Tracy Haney? Fidel, can you give her the microphone? Thank you. Go ahead. Tracy?
Hello. I didn't have a question. I don't know how I got.
Okay, moving on.
We'll just say hello, Tracy, and thank you for being with us. Next
That's
question.
right.
And Tracy was very involved with the congratulations to all of our class of fall of 2020. So thank you,
Yeah.
Tracy, for your
Yeah,
effort.
thanks, Tracy.
Okay, our next one is Celicia Foster.
Hi.
One more time.
Lisa, you just went on mute again.
Am I still muted?
Nope, you're good.
No, now we can hear you.
Sorry. Hi, you guys. This is Coach Cece from the dance team. I think somebody just answered my question, my other question in the chat about housing. But I did have one other comment. If I saw this come through in emails, if you could just remind folks that if they don't live close to campus and they need mental health services or student health services, that they can get those services from a CSU that's close to their home. I saw that come through an email and I thought that was awesome. So I just wanted to put that out there. And then my other questions were already answered.
That is correct, CC, and thank you for what you do for you and your dance team, and hopefully we can keep that team together even as we function in a virtual reality, and thank you for the support you and your team always provide in the spirit to the campus. You're exactly right that most mental health and even some of our health is done through telemedicine, and so irrespective of the location you live in, the vast majority of those services are being provided virtually. So whether you punch in from across the street or 10 miles away, you know, it is the same thing. But if there is some kind of crisis or emergency you need to do that requires more face-to-face engagement, yes, that provision is in place for people to be able to use both mental health services as well as talk to physicians who can triage your particular medical issue and get you to the right resources. Thank you for that.
Excellent. Brandon Austin, you're next.
Hey, Brandon.
Brandon?
Hello.
Hi there.
Oh, hey, Mr. President, and the rest of the colleagues that are on. I do want to take the time to say thank you for just having this town hall meeting. The president kind of already asked my question in reference to the grading procedures, but I think I was a little vague to a degree. So I'm actually a senior, and so what I was trying to get at was that if a senior has to file an NC or a W, delaying that process due to the learning structure or depending on the class as far as the inadequate tutoring aspect, how would that be seen as, I guess, plausible for them to have to go through another semester? In regards to, non-major classes.
Yeah, I have an opinion about that, but I'm gonna invite our academic experts to do that.
I would comment. I think that Dean Avila did respond, Brandon, in the chat box, and I also would connect you with Maruth Figueroa. So Maruth, if you could reach out to Brandon to kind of guide him, that's the function of university advising, to help you navigate the decisions and discussions about the specific class you're talking about. So I would strongly encourage you to take advantage of that resource.
Great, thanks for being here, Brandon.
Thank you. Before we go to Jocelyn, Real quickly, I just want everybody to know that there's several questions being put in there about the question and answer, and the team in the background is going to do their very level best to capture all of these so that it can be distributed, especially to the fall planning committee. Zoom does not allow us to do that, so we are trying to find other ways to capture that as they're being answered as well. Jocelyn Taboada, you are up. I think your question was answered both out loud and in the question and answer, but go ahead if you've got your mic now.
She's the one running the older version of Zoom. And
okay, all right. So Jocelyn, we're gonna have to lower your hand, sorry.
Yeah, I did see her question come up a few times.
Okay, thank you. Steve Becker, you're next. Please go ahead.
Coach, how are you?
Dr. Parham, thank you very much, and Dr. Franklin for providing this opportunity for us to just be informed and learn how things will move forward. So thank you very much. Specifically, I just wanted to communicate on behalf of athletics that everyone is very excited about whatever steps are necessary for us to move forward to continue to impact our student athletes. And, you know, for us with men's basketball, there's we're so many different hats to our guys, and they really just, you know, thrive under the direction of the NCAA coaches. So I just wanted to ask specifically, is there any anticipation for furloughs coming down the line from NCAA sports coaches?
So thanks to you. And, you know, I'm one of those folk who bleeds athletics. I'm an athletic junkie, and I wear my Turo gear proudly everywhere I go, except when I'm on Zoom calls like this. But I can answer specifically about that the short answer is we don't know. The one decision we have made as presidents in the CCAA, which is the conference, as you know, we play in, is to suspend fall athletics. But with that suspension, we want to try to keep intact both the players who are as part of a team, and that team also includes coaches and assistant coaches. So we are trying our best to do that. I can tell you that there is great variability across the system. And there are some folks who are looking at furloughs and layoffs for coaches around the system. There's some of us that are trying to keep it intact. My bias, and this is just my background as your leader and president, is to try to preserve everybody that we can. So we are not making any decisions about what to do or how to do yet, because we just don't know enough about the budget situation and the resources we'll be able to deploy to keep everybody in that space. We're also, excuse me, and I've asked about the possibility of, if in fact we don't have a lot of athletic activity, there are some folk who are believing that somehow that doesn't justify why we keep a coach on. My thinking is quite different than that, because you do have versatile skills. You do know how to advise. You do know how to engage. You do know how to counsel. You do know how to mentor folk, which you do every day with your teams, that we can redeploy those skills to other parts of the campus to be able to use those. Now, I understand saying that there are contracts and collective bargaining agreements and other stuff that we have to kind of navigate, but know that that is part of the consideration we are moving forward now. So we'll keep you posted as that moves on. So I'm trying very hard not to do that.
Yeah, Coach, that's a ditto for me. It's great to work with a president who you don't have to, you know, explain what he just said to the president. So ditto for me, and good to hear your voice, and glad that you're on.
Other questions, Carol? We got a few more minutes. Let's extend the time a little bit and keep on going.
All right, Karen Velasquez, you are next. Before we take you to the microphone, we have 13 questions. They're coming down quite rapidly now. So please, panelists, if you have a moment, please take a look and see if you can answer the questions. Again, we are trying to capture these as best as we can so that we can pass them on to the correct entities. Karen, go ahead.
Hi. My question has been partially answered by Dr. William Franklin through and answers here through Zoom. But really, just briefly, I am the student, the senior, that I'm supposed to graduate. And I mean, it's obvious that many of us, especially students, have been affected. So the deal here is that I'm trying to register for fall 2020, which, how I said previously, it's my last a financial hold for $2,400 that I am unable to pay at the moment because of, you know, COVID-19 and my job. And so how can I reach out for help? Like, who do I have to email? Or, I mean, is there anything I can do? Since I mean, I cannot pay that amount of money, but I would love to graduate in fall 2020.
Want me to got that? Well, Karen, thank you, and I certainly tried to address it in the chat too, and thank you for your candor with close to 600 people on sharing your personal crises. I appreciate that. And what we are going to do, and the president said that we now know to the number the amount of students who cannot register because of financial holds. And as the provost says, we have to woo our new students and re-recruit our continuing students. Part of that re-recruitment is around this cabinet, along with Vice President Wallace and Wayne having very candid conversations about every student who has a financial hold and what the university is prepared to do to mitigate, deal with, forgive, hold accountable, whatever that is. We're going to have to make those decisions really soon. And as you may not know, though, that list was prepared. That list was prepared for us by our folks in University Alana in University Advancement. So we know who's on that list, and we know that that list is long, and we know that there are unique situations on that list. So let me just give you the assurance that we are looking at every student on that list, and that includes you, Karen, and we hope to have some answers really soon about what we're going to do, because most students who have financial holds on that list have been impacted, lost their jobs, been laid off, and for that reason only, they cannot make those charges go away. So we're on it.
Cara, we got time for about 1 or 2 more questions. Go for it.
We have 2 hands up. Shauna Earl, you are next. Go ahead.
Hi, Shauna.
Shauna?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Perfect. First, let me say thank you so much for having this platform where I have an opportunity to talk with everyone. I'm extremely grateful. I actually submit my thesis this semester during summer 2020, and my question is regarding the GSO. I wanted to see what impact COVID-19 has had on the GSO. I believe students who submitted last semester are just now starting to hear back from the GSO. So I wanted to see if we would have the same impact as well, meaning that even though I've submit my thesis and everything, I have to wait until sometime in the fall to hear back from the GSO. Thank you.
John Price, do you want to take that one?
I think I saw John Price on there. There he is.
I'm sorry, I was actually going through the chat window. Could you very briefly, I caught just the tail end of that question.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can ask again. Thank you.
I apologize.
No worries, no worries. I'm most appreciative. So I submit my thesis this semester, summer 2020, and I wanted to check and see what impact COVID-19 has had on the GSO. I believe students who submitted their thesis last semester are just now starting to hear back that they've graduated or that the GSO needed more information. So I was wondering if I would have the same impact, meaning I submit in the summer, but I don't hear back until sometime in the fall.
Okay, that's what I thought you said, but I wasn't sure. If you have already submitted your thesis, you're in the queue and things are underway, all right? The somewhat shorter answer is I will check on it and get back to you. And I have lost your picture here, so I don't know who this was asking the question. But if you send me personally an email, I will verify what I just said and get back to you.
Yeah, John, that was one of our last students, last name Earl, E-A-R-L.
What's
I'll
your
find
name? I can send you an email.
Shauna Earl. Yes, if you send me an email, I will follow up on it.
That's John Price. He's
J.
our dean of the
Price.
graduate division.
I'm
Thanks.
Googleable.
Carl, we got time for one more.
There is, let's see, Shauna, you're gone. Raquel Herrera Miranda, you're next. And panelists, if you can just quickly check, there seems to be some financial aid questions. You can also answer in live time if you need to. That would be great. You can click when we're done with the next speaker question. Go ahead.
Hello,
Raquel?
thank you so much for letting me speak. I just wanted to ask you guys, I've been asking questions. I've even emailed the president asking questions if there's any, like, I know we received an email saying that for now there's no chance for us going back to campus, but I was wondering if you guys have decided, like, if maybe we can get tested before we get to go to campus and we just wear a mask and we keep our social distancing, or is it like completely off the table? The reason why I ask is because I'm a liberal studies major, and for me, my classes are very hands-on, and I want the best experience to be the best teacher that I can be. And I'll be starting my credential program in the fall, and it would just be really, really, like, for me, it wouldn't give me the experience that I would want. And I know that Dominguez can give me the experience that I need and I deserve, but I just feel that, like, learning from Zoom is completely different from being hands-on in the classroom learning with other teachers who are in the credential program as well. And so I just wanted to know, is there any updates, or are you guys still saying we're closed until January 2021?
So let me answer that.
Parham, if I could
please
just
do.
interject. As a former teacher myself, I appreciate exactly what you're saying. You know, there is no substitute for being with students. And we have both the dean and associate dean that are on this video conference. There's active work that they both have been doing to try and make sure that we can try and get you to an experience that's fulfilling. So there is our intention to do that. Part of this is related to what happens with our school partners and how we can work with them, and we're working in concert with them. You might have seen the headline today about LA Unified and several other districts saying they might have to delay their start, but we're actively working on that, and I'll make sure that Dean Davis and Associate Dean Hutton get your information to reach out to you to kind of give you updates on that front, because we're gonna have to deal with these kinds of instructional outcomes at individual disciplinary levels, and being a liberal studies major, we're sensitive to that. Same thing with nursing, same thing with people who have clinical hours in social work and so forth.
Right. Yeah, I would say what he just said. So I think we're on the same page with that. But thank you for your question. Let me say to folk, as we prepare to close and invite folk to our panelists to get into the Q&A and see if we can respond to some of those, that all of us, I think, are chomping at the bit at wanting to get back to campus and to be in the space where, you know, we can kind of engage each other face to face. But we cannot and we will not compromise the health and safety of our community. The unfortunate part is we happen to live in a region where the numbers for incidence of new cases, prevalence of total number of cases, mortality rate, et cetera, are still rising and not tamping down fast enough for us to get the kind of clearance that we would like from public health officials, from the governor, or from other folks. So the announcement that we will go into a fully virtual reality for the fall is really designed out of an abundance of caution around health, but it also is designed in trying not to create a disruptive experience in the fall where we might open up and then have to tap it back down, or we might start virtually and have to reopen face-to-face, which creates a lot of disruption, particularly when the CDC and other folk, medical experts, are reminding us that they think there's a second wave coming in the fall. No way to know for sure. This is uncharted territory for everybody. So everything we are doing is really out of an abundance of caution, and we appreciate that it is qualitatively different, but we will do our best to try to make sure that you have a meaningful and an excellent experience as part of the Toro family here on campus. So want to say thanks to that. Want to address a couple other pieces before we leave. First of all, several people have asked about the fall planning committee. So I want to again reintroduce those who may have come on late, because we have a lot of people coming and going in the participant room. Cheryl Coos and Dang, see your picture, there you are, who are co-chairing that committee. And the goal of the committee is to simply be a hub to gather information and perspective. So they are reaching out to a myriad of stakeholders. So I saw a couple questions in there about was, there an attempt to exclude, or why did we exclude a particular cohort or not? There is nobody, let me say that again, nobody who is being excluded. And the issue is not really, can I have a seat at the table, but rather, can I find a way to provide my perspective and input to that committee who will need it as we engage in further campus planning. That is the measure of consultation that we are committed to. So I want to reinforce what we've said already on the call, but just make sure that people do that, because that fall recovery planning committee is going to be real important as we move forward in the days and weeks ahead. Lastly, let me say that I am eternally grateful for what was over 700 people at our highest note today who participated in this call, who came together. And I want to thank the participants for your time and energy at being able to kind of hear what we had to say today. I want to thank our team, Cara and Fidel, and that whole technology group who have really supported us and really navigated this space well as our MCs. I want to thank our executive cabinet and management team, all of our deans, department chairs, other folk who've been just working tirelessly to try to help us all adapt to this particular space and to really move in uncharted territory. Folks, there is no playbook for this, but we are doing the best we can under the circumstances. But as Toros, we will get through this as a family and a community, and you have our commitment on that. And despite the fact that we are still navigating these uncharted waters and going through this health crisis, the campus is continuing to plug away, and we have some, good news that is happening in the spaces we have. We have programs being accredited. We have grants that we are receiving. We have, things that are happening. So there are a lot of things that we are touching as a Toro community that are coming up gold. And I couldn't be prouder of this entire team, or prouder to be the president of this magnificent institution as we move forward. This is unlike anything I have ever seen in my lifetime. But, I'm reminded of the words of one of my heroes, Dr. King, who says, the measure of a man or woman is never where they stand in times of comfort and convenience, but where they stand in times of challenge and controversy. We are being challenged for sure, but I am confident that with all of your support, patience, help, and understanding, we will get through this together. So I thank you for being a part of this town hall, our second one. We'll be back to you later on in the summer with further planning. And let me wish you good health, stay safe, hug your families and the loved ones in your life if you can and they're around you, or give them virtual hugs if you can. Please remember that physical distance is different than social connectedness. So we want to try to distinguish. So stay socially connected to those people who are in your life and reach out to them and touch them. And please stay connected to us. And thank you for all of the accolade and compliments you've extended to me as your president and the First Lady. But please know that what you extend to us, you really are extending to an entire team. I am only as good as your leader as the work produced by the people who work with and for me. And it's all of you really who really deserve the thanks for pulling together. So with that, we'll say thank you for being a part of this second town hall. We look forward to talking to you again. Take care. Let me get everybody to wave bye to each other in the way we stay social connected, right? Y'all want to throw out some love? Throw out some love. This is not Soul Train where we go love, peace, and soul, but we just want to send something out to everybody in that space. So everybody take care, stay healthy, and we'll talk to you later. Toros, right? Go Toros. Horns up. There we go. Take care, everybody.